Hello, IEP parents. I am Ava, Tracie's AI assistant. Welcome, parents. From the desk of Tracie Kelly. I remember the anguish, the frustration, and the tears that seemed to never end. I recall the days when my son, Spencer, was just a toddler, and the signs of Asperger's syndrome began to manifest in ways that felt very overwhelming. So, when I learned that I could enroll my son into an early childhood special education preschool for IEP children at our local school district, I felt so happy to finally have some relief and professional help. However, in the beginning, the journey through the evaluations, consultations, and ultimately, the horrific IEP meetings were a roller coaster of emotions. Back then, my son Spencer's development was far from typical. His unique needs demanded specialized attention and support through therapy. Finding out that the school district would provide all of these services for free was quite relieving. But quickly, the IEP meetings with the school district felt more like a courtroom, and like I was on trial against the school district, and it wasn't going well for me. I was requesting individualized services for my child that I felt he needed, and they said no, that's not how they do things there. They asked me to implement my son's IEP, so his preschool and therapeutic services could begin, which I did, while I signed that I disagreed with what was written in the IEP. Because I disagreed, the IEP meetings continued, but now with the school district lawyers, the school district special education superintendent, and other prominent IEP team members sitting at the meeting table. I was intimidated, stressed, and if I'm being completely honest, I didn't understand anything about the IEP meeting process. Feeling bullied and overwhelmed, I quickly acquiesced to what they deemed as correct for my son's needs. But this all didn't sit well with me, but I also didn't want to cause too much trouble for son at school. But, from that point on, every attempt to work with the school district felt like an uphill struggle. For me, it was a vicious cycle of feeling powerless, defeated, bullied, dismissed, and unheard. The turning point came when I had enough of feeling bullied, and I was truly worried about my son's experience in school. He went from being excited to go to school in that first week, to crying, screaming, and refusing to go out the door to school. The worst part was, he was unable to communicate anything to me beyond the screaming, crying, and saying, "No, no, 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 no." It was heartbreaking. All I knew at that point was that something had to change. Enough was enough. No child should feel that traumatized and upset about going to school. So, after just a few months of his being in this program and not getting the satisfactory answers that I needed from the school, I removed my son and decided that he would be back home with me and that he'd transition to local walk-in services. He needed to know that he was safe and that he was never again going back to that school. After all was said and done, while looking back and being glad that the nightmare IEP meetings had ended, I'd be the first to admit that I was completely unprepared for those IEP meetings, and I really didn't understand what I was talking about the whole time. I had just gone from a 3-year-old well-check visit at my son's pediatrician and being told by the doctor that she suspected autism, to then being referred to our local school district for an autism evaluation, which led to the IEP meeting. My emotions were running high. I had unanswered questions and a slew of new fears and worries. The truth was, had I understood how the IEP meeting process worked and everything the IEP entailed, those meetings and my son's preschool experience could have gone so much better. I would have known my rights and how to respond to being bullied. I would have known how to advocate for my son to get the needed supports. But I had no idea what I was doing or what I was really asking for. Heck, I didn't even know what an IEP was until I attended the first meeting. And more importantly, I had no idea that the IEP was a legally binding document. Hindsight is always 20/20. This is what I did next. I stepped up and did what had to be done. My idea was to keep my son home with me for these next few years, since Michigan compulsory education laws didn't require children to attend school until age 6. During this time, I indulged his education by delight-directed learning, meaning we'd try new experiences for kids his age and go all in on the stuff he enjoyed focusing on. We also spent a lot of time seeing therapists, both school-provided and private, as well as going to doctor appointments, attending events within the autism community, and trying out different things to help our son. During this time, I knew something had to change so my child could have a positive experience at school when we did send him back for first grade. I was determined to never, ever, never have a horrible IEP meeting experience again. So the hard work began. I had to figure this out for both his sake and mine. I began to research everything about the IEP and IEP meetings. I studied it like I was taking a college class. I learned online. I went to in-person IEP events. I spoke to professionals. I spoke to other parents. I read books. I took a deep dive into everything IEP over that year, and the end result was that I created a system to use to prepare for my IEP meetings. I took all that I learned that past year, and I created a system to get completely prepared for my next IEP meeting. I literally typed out a step-by-step system so I wouldn't forget it, and so I'd have it available at my fingertips as needed. I got all the mountains of paperwork organized and under control. In the end, as I was figuring out a new school for my son, I was prepared and ready for a new positive IEP meeting. Once we made the decision that Spencer would be attending a charter school, we enrolled him and had our first IEP meeting. What a difference being prepared makes. The IEP team said to me that I was the most prepared parent they've ever met. Could I imagine if every parent came into their meeting this prepared? What a difference it would make. This was the moment that I had my epiphany. I couldn't just keep this IEP meeting prep system to myself. I have to share this with every other IEP parent I can find. Because I knew that every parent I ever spoke with was also struggling with their IEP meetings. I had designed a proven system that works. This was back in 2006. I burned my system onto CDs and called it the IEP Help Disk and mailed it to many parents that I found online. Every parent seemed to be struggling back then with their IEP meetings, and I was so happy that I found a way to give back. Fast forward to the year 2022. Mai was up at my youngest son's school to pick him up, and there was an autistic boy there. I thought about his IEP, and if his parents struggled still today. Then I thought about the IEP help disk that I created long ago. And I went home that night and looked up on the computer, as I was curious if IEP parents were still struggling. Surely technology has had to lead to some great advances. But nope. What did I find? I found hundreds of parents all over Facebook groups struggling with their kids' IEPs and their IEP meetings. And the crazy thing was that all these parents are struggling with the same types of questions and problems, just like the parents did when my son was young. And here I was. I knew I had something that could help all parents, my IEP meeting prep course. So, over the following year, I got busy, working with intense passion and dedication every free moment that I had, including working late nights. I prepared, improved, enhanced, and moved my IEP meeting prep course to the internet, where it's now available 24/7 to all parents. As I wrote and wrote and wrote, hundreds of hours and many months passed by, and finally finished the project. Let me just say, this was no quick or easy task, but I got it done by my goal time, which was the beginning of December 2023, just in time for me to speak on stage and sell my course at the World Conference on Autism in Colorado. And the rest, my friends, goes down in history. Here we are today. Over this past year, I've been working on creating an online resource community for IEP parents. It's a work in progress, but I have a great vision for just how amazing it will become. What about my son with autism, you may wonder? Spencer has been breaking barriers beyond all beliefs for many years now. Back in 2016, when Spencer was out of 9th grade, he and his friend rode to McDonald's. Their bikes were stolen. Spencer made a deal with his dad that dad would buy him a new bike, and Spencer would pay him back by the end of summer. Spencer didn't just go get a job. He started a handmade soap business to make money. Through his high school years, Spencer became a public speaker and autism advocate. He even spoke at the World Conference on Autism over 2 years about autism and entrepreneurship. There's so much more to this story for another time. However, to keep it short, Spencer spent 4 years here in Michigan at Oakland University, where he lived in the dorm, worked his soap business, and studied in the school's business honors program, studying honors accounting. He graduated with high honors, got a good job working in accounting, and then quit. You see, while in college, he studied abroad in Spain. Since then, he had big dreams to go back after graduation and backpack the world. Spencer loves reading, history, culture, people, exotic foods, and travel. So, on June 4th, 2024, Spencer flew to Europe to begin his solo adventures. While on his travels, he has since met a girl from Slovenia, and now they're dating. He's written a book about his journey, and he's currently continuing his journey in Thailand, the Philippines, and then Japan. He plans to return home in February 2025 temporarily. Oh, and if you've noticed the expeditionsoaps.com advertisements on these pages, check them out. Their story is most amazing to me because that business belongs to my sons. They started it back in 2016 when they were just 12 and 15 years old. Since then, it's grown into quite a successful, popular business. They have an amazing story, amazing products, and some amazing gifts for the holidays. You'll enjoy seeing their website and stories, so be sure to click on their links and check them out.